Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. I'm your host, Sarah Jones. For this episode, I got to speak with Kate Murphy. Kate Murphy is a Portland-based comedian and artist. She performs all around the Pacific Northwest, has produced multiple shows in Portland, and is a regular performer at Helium Comedy Club. Kate wrote and co-produced the short film A Hump public service announcement, which won Best Humor at Hump Film Festival in 2017. She's been featured in Hell Yes Fest, the Northwest Women's Comedy Festival, Pacific Crest Comedy Fest, and many more. Kate has been a finalist in Helium Comedy Club's Portland's Funniest Person contest and has been named one of the Portland Mercury's undisputed geniuses of comedy. She's featured on Helium Comedy Records' 2020 album, Best of Helium Volume 1, and is the current host of the long-running Portland Mercury's The I, Anonymous show. Before she made her way to Portland, Kate was born and raised in Montana. Naturally, that's where I chose to find a haunted place to explore with her. Lucky for us, Kate has personally visited the old Montana State Prison several times and has even done her own paranormal investigating there. For pictures that go along with this episode, check out our Instagram at Lit Dark Podcast. For now, sit back and enjoy the history and legends of the old Montana State Prison.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So you just moved, didn't you?
Yeah, we're in Louisville, Kentucky.
In Kentucky, how do you like it there?
It's totally great because I don't go anywhere or go outside.
Good. You're like, it's exactly the same as anywhere I've lived.
Yeah.
Great.
It's pretty. We we got a place that's like 3 times as large as our Portland apartment for like a third of the price. So it's really paying off.
Oh, that's awesome. I bet.
Yeah.
And you're not dealing with all those fires too right now.
I know. I'm feeling kind of bad because I got out of Portland right before everything got really bad.
That's good.
Yeah. It's pretty awful there. Where are you, in Los Angeles?
I live in Long Beach.
Long Beach. Is it smoky there? Because I know San Francisco is pretty smoky.
It is. It's smoky here too. It's like the whole West Coast is just rocked right now.
Ugh, I hate that.
So you originally are from Montana.
Born and raised Bozeman, Montana. Correct.
Okay. All right. I don't know anything about Montana, so I don't exactly know where that is. But I told you. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say most people don't. It's like a huge state, and nobody can tell you where it is.
They're just like, I don't know. Like, it's somewhere on there. But I told you ahead of time that we're going to be doing the old Montana State Prison, and you actually mentioned that you've been here before.
More than a few times. It's one of my favorite places ever. It's the best.
Well, then you probably do know a lot of this history, but we'll get into it, and then I can't wait to hear your personal stories of being there. That's so cool. It's like the next best thing from I hate that I can't visit the places this season. It just takes so much away from it. But if you've been there before, it's like, okay, this is close enough.
I have some stories.
Oh my God, I can't wait. All right, well, let's back up and tell the story. I'm going to start with in Powell County, Montana. About 3.5 miles west of Deer Lodge sits the old Montana State Prison. How far is that from where you grew up?
About an hour away.
Okay.
It was, very easy little flat drive. Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's not so bad at all. Yeah. So the original facility was located in downtown Deer Lodge, but the current facility was constructed between 1974 and 1979 after falling into degeneration. The prison is sometimes referred to as Montana's territorial prison because the prison is so old, it actually predates Montana's statehood. This prison was, you're like, I know.
It's so exciting.
It is exciting. It's awesome. This prison was the first to stand in the entire state of Montana, Back in the early 19th century wild American West, the gold rush attracted all kinds of people to the territory of Montana, including thieves, gamblers, and murderers. While Montana vigilantes rose up and punished their offenders in the lawless land, eventually the Montana Territorial Legislature requested funds from the U.S. Congress to build a prison. The prison was the Montana Territorial Prison from 1871 until, of course, Montana achieved statehood in 1889. Excuse me. And it became the Old Montana State Prison. It was the primary penal institution, say that 5 times fast, for the state until 1979 and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1976. Today, it is a museum. So I'm going to get into a lot of the history there because I'm sure you've heard this, like you going there and visiting, like you heard all the stories about like escapes or riots or anything like that. I'm going to jump into all of that stuff. And then feel free, like if you remember something, jump in and be like, oh, wasn't it like this? Like, don't worry about, that's okay. Cool.
Sure.
So let's see. The first 9 convicts to be incarcerated there were put behind bars in July of 1871. Some of the most ruthless criminals of their time came to this prison, and it quickly became overcrowded. The inmates were subjected to pretty appalling living conditions, even for a prison, due to constant overcrowding, insufficient funds, and antiquated facilities. Then came Warden Frank Conley. So a little background on this guy. Frank Conley arrived to Montana at the ripe young age of 16 when he started working to create what would later become Yellowstone National Park. He became a member of the Central Montana Vigilance Committee and later a deputy sheriff in Custer County, Montana, where I assume you know where that is.
No. Yeah.
Great. When Frank learned about a vacancy at the Old Montana State Prison as a guard, he took it. There he ascended to prison warden, where he launched a series of projects to improve the facility. From 1890 to 1921, Frank started an extensive inmate labor initiative, which kept many inmates working to construct the prison buildings and walls, as well as providing various state and community services like road building, logging, and ranching. In his time at the Old Montana State Prison, Conley contributed to a plethora of buildings using prison labor. Using a generous donation from his friend William A. Clark, who happened to be one of Montana's Copper Kings. Do you know what that is? Copper Kings?
Yeah, I shouldn't speak because I don't know too much about it, but I do know that there's a Copper King mansion in Butte, Montana that is also like super haunted.
Oh, yeah. They said he is from Butte, William A. Clark.
Oh, so I bet that's his house, the Copper King mansion.
I wonder if it is.
There was a bunch of rich dudes. Yeah,
it was.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was like sort of irrelevant to the story, so I kind of just didn't leave it in. But I did look it up to like know what that, like Copper Kings. I was like, that sounds kind of cool. But no, they weren't cool. They were like awful. And I terrible, as far as I could see, it seemed like they were like they would amass wealth by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Like smoking people out of mines and like all kinds of crazy shit.
And some wild stuff that happened.
Yeah. So the Copper King Mansion, have you been there too?
I went when I was a child. I haven't been in later years, but I do I was outside of it as recent as a few years ago. I went to Butte, which is pretty darn small.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as going to inside the Copper King Mansion, not since I was a child. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, anyway, so yeah, that guy is good friends with our friend Frank Conley. So using prison labor and this generous donation from this Copper King, they constructed the nation's first ever prison theater. The prison theater could seat 1,000 people in leather-covered seats and welcomed both prisoners and members of the community, which is weird to me. I would be weirded out going to a theater and being like, oh, there's convicted rapists in here. That's
We're going to go out to a show. like full of prisoners. Yeah, it sounds great.
That sounds
honestly.
awesome.
Such a
Leather
weird...
seats. Come on. So there they would host concerts, plays, prize fights, movies, and more. The theater became a disciplinary tool, of course, where inmates could lose privileges to visit the theater. On December 3rd of 1975, however, an unknown arsonist destroyed it. So...
Sounds right.
Bummer. Yeah, sounds about right. All told, Conley used inmate labor to build 11 buildings of the Montana State Hospital in Warm Springs, 4 buildings for the Montana State Tuberculosis Sanatorium in Galen, and over 500 miles of roads in the state. So growing up in Montana, the roads that you've driven on were created by prison inmates.
Yeah, I believe it, especially because Montana is just what am I trying to say? It's only like a few roads, if that makes sense.
Is it really small?
No, I mean, like, the population is very small. I think they didn't hit 1 million people in the entire state until just a few years ago. They always joke that it's the same town with just like really long roads. So it's like there aren't... there's only one way to get from one town to another town. There's not multiple ways, if that makes sense. It's just like a set of highways, a huge state. Yeah.
Huh. That's crazy.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh, yeah. It sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean, I really wish I could visit, especially now hearing about the Butte Mansion. Like, that would be another, so I'd be like, oh, I could check that place out.
It's supposed to be, like, really, really haunted. And I, like, the old Montana State Prison's a little bit more on the famous side.
Okay.
But the Copper King is, you can, I don't know what it's like now, but when I was younger, you could go stay at the Copper King Mansion.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I'm so down. I want to check it out so bad. So on the prison labor, Frank Conley seemed to believe that the labor itself was actually not so bad for the inmates. He reasoned that the absence of physical restraints, coupled with some trust and the opportunity to be outside and maybe get a sense of pride and accomplishment rather than having to, he said, quote, brood and ponder over his sufferings and wrongs, his failures and disappointments. That this is actually rather healthy for the inmates, which I guess is, subjective. You can see what
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a great argument for the time.
I'm sure. Absolutely. In order to manage the inmates, the system they implemented was meant to follow the Auburn system of penal reform, which originated at Auburn Prison in New York in the 1820s. Also known as the silent system, the Auburn system was organized so that prisoners could work in groups during the day, maintain solitary confinement at night, and adhere to a strict code of silence at all times, which sounds awful. But that's probably because I never shut up. Like, I couldn't do it.
Can you imagine, though? Like, I can't. Oh, my God. How terrible.
No, I can't. And with this one, due to severe overcrowding, the method proved nearly impossible to implement. Like, you can't, like, how are you going to do that?
How?
Yeah.
That's wild.
What an awful, yeah. I mean, it's prison, but still.
It's already awful.
It's already,
like,
it's
and
awful
you also
enough.
Can't talk. That's crazy.
Absolutely not. That's terrible. So the cells in the prison measured 6 by 8 feet and were constructed of soft brick, which I'm not sure what that means. I don't know. Like, do you know what that means? Soft versus a hard brick?
Well, I'm wondering if it's just like based on where it was built, if it's a different kind of material, if it's made of just like sand and cement, or like a soft brick might be some sort of stone. I should look it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder too. I saw that and I was like, I'm gonna put a note there and see if if you knew. I mean, it's not a big enough deal, but now I want to ask around and be like, what does this mean? Like, somebody knows.
What does it mean to build something out of soft brick?
Yeah, that seems like an oxymoron to me.
That's wild.
But so there was no plumbing and no artificial lighting. The building had no heating and no ventilation. So as you well know, in Montana, temperatures can reach negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter and up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh, God, awful. The administration would use wood stoves to heat the building and oil lamps to light it.
Wow.
Yeah, to me, the visual of the oil lamps is creepy enough by itself. Like, for some reason, I picture, have you been on Pirates of the Caribbean? Like the ride?
It's exactly what it would look like, I think.
Yeah, it's like the flickering like light from the oil lamps. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, what I didn't think about was that the smoke from the oil lamps would combine with the stench of bucketed human waste and unwashed bodies. Because remember, there's no plumbing.
Ooh, yep.
So it was not, it was a stinky place to be.
Mm-hmm.
The prison did hire a physician. This poor guy was severely overworked. No pharmaceuticals were provided to inmates. Any prison patient who did require a drug would need to purchase his medication using his own salary.
Wow.
Many sicknesses in the prison were rampant, of course, due to a combination of overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and poor food quality, with a diet that was high in proteins and starch, but few fruits and vegetables due to budget constraints.
Oh my God. Well, I'm sure like it was hard to get any sort of fresh fruit out there anyway. Like, you know what I mean? Just at that time. And when it's so landlocked, nothing
Right.
grows. So
Yeah.
it's just I can imagine. But also it just sounds like the worst time.
Just just the worst time ever. Just the state is thriving. They're just building buildings and stuff. At least the prisoners' diets were at least improved significantly after Frank Conley implemented the ranches that were run by prison labor. So these ranches produced beef, pork, poultry, and dairy products for prison use. The prison farm produced vegetables for the inmates and feed for the animals on the ranches. So it got, I would imagine, a little bit better.
Still sounds like the worst.
Oh my God, it sounds horrible. Just the smell. I can't.
Yeah.
Possibly the most memorable prisoner at this prison, and I know you've heard of this guy, was a man named Pete Eitner, who, at the age of 40, was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in 1918. You do know who this is, trust me. When I keep talking, You're going to be like, oh, yeah. Okay.
I believe if you go visit, there's a cell with like a... like a dummy, like a, what do you call that? A mannequin. I'm pretty sure.
Perfect. Pete was a model prisoner and liked by even the guards. He was assigned to tend to the prison turkeys, and as such was given the nickname Turkey Pete. As Turkey Pete aged, he began to lose his mental facilities. One day, when a man stopped to admire the turkeys, Turkey Pete sold him the entire flock for 25 cents each. Of course, this would mean that he had lost his job tending to the turkeys, given that there were no longer any turkeys to tend to. But this did not bother our friend Turkey Pete one bit, because he had his sights set on a different position, as owner and administrator of the prison itself. Remember, he's sentenced to life for murder. Prison officials actually humored Turkey Pete and would print him fake checks, which, of course, he would use to pay prison expenses and payroll. Turkey Pete would spin tall tales telling everyone about how he owned a coffee crop in Brazil, or that he sold pink alligators, ships to the Navy, and even grasshopper legs to Fidel Castro. I mean,
it's amazing.
Turkey Pete died in 1967 at the age of 89, and his cell number 1, was retired.
It's amazing.
His funeral was the only one ever held within the walls of the prison. And today, like you said, cell number 1 has displays with photos of Turkey Pete as well as a few of his belongings. So that's cool. You kind of like got to see his stuff.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think if that's the one with the mannequin in it. But yeah, they have a few cells that have like some stuff in it. So.
This would have been cell number 1. It's like they make it a big deal in all the research for some reason. That's number 1. Turkey Pete, our guy. I didn't look into the actual murder either. Like I was kind of curious about, man, they loved this guy, but like what did he do?
I wonder, but I feel like back then, like people just killed each other. Like it wasn't.
They were like, this is
you know
fine.
What I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. It was just like kind of like a pretty common life path. It's like you just like shoot someone and then you like go to prison.
Yeah, it was like, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing. I'm Turkey Pete. What's up?
I'm a nice guy. I just killed someone.
I'm fine. I sold pink alligators.
The 1800s.
Nothing's weird here. Like every long-standing prison, there have been several escape attempts from the old Montana State Prison. In 1902, Thomas O'Brien, the inmate stable boss of the prison barn, drugged Conley's dogs, which were used for hunting and tracking down escaped convicts. He then stole Conley's prized racehorse and escaped. O'Brien ended up leaving the horse, bridle, and saddle in a nearby pasture and turned himself in 18 days later. I'm not sure why. In 1903, O'Brien was paroled and published a controversial book titled Infamy Immortal, which is an awesome name. Yeah. And it described his treatment in prison at the hands of Conley.
Wow.
He wasn't the only person with complaints about Conley's conduct in the prison. The community began to complain that Frank Conley was using the prisoners and the office of warden for his own personal gain. You see, it's not that he used this system to just build the prison itself, roads all over Montana, and buildings for state institutions. He also found a way to have the inmates build his very own lavish warden's residence across Main Street from the prison. Also, a hunting lodge on the shores of his private lake, and another one just for his buddy. A whole other hunting lodge.
That's so insane.
And a racetrack where he would run his own thoroughbreds. He'd also use the produce of the prison ranch and farm to entertain guests like Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, several Montana governors, and of course, Copper King, William Clark.
Wow.
At these events, he'd commonly use prisoners as cooks, waiters, and servants.
That's insane.
I can't imagine. How would you feel being that prisoner? You're like serving these rich assholes. Well, I shouldn't say that, I guess, about Franklin Roosevelt. But I don't know. I didn't know the guy, Teddy Roosevelt. But yeah, but still, I mean, I can't imagine being like, we built this entire fucking building. Now we're serving you in it. What a nightmare.
Yeah. With no choice. And I'd like, it just blows my mind that you forget, like, there were just like no rules. It's like you could kill someone and go to prison, but there was just like no other rules, if that makes sense. Like
they're allowed to treat the prisoners however they want. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's crazy.
Another prison escape started with a man named George Alton. George would lend himself out for hire to new inmates for their protection for the reasonable price of $10 a month. I'd pay it. I live in Long Beach. I should pay that right now. Should pay for my protection. Alton was often in and out of the prison since the year 1952 and was well respected by both the guards and the inmates. He was especially known for his vicious left hook, and was a regular fighter in the prize fighting ring held weekly at the prison theater. Which also blows my mind. Like, how are they having these prisoners, like, fighting each other in a ring every week? Yeah. Doesn't that seem weird?
It's just that, like, crazy, brutal shit that just, like, nobody cared that was happening.
They're like, we have 1,000 leather seats. Just watch these guys. They're nuts.
Oh, man. I feel like people watching people fight was really popular till like
since
recently.
Ancient times.
Theaters. Yeah.
Oh my God, the Romans would watch lions just eat people alive, like
so
for sport. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Humans are so strange.
So fucked up.
In August of 1958, one day after a new warden, Floyd Powell, started his first day on the job, Alton escaped with another convict in a prison vehicle marked Registrar of Motor Vehicles. The two convicts waved to the new warden on their way past the prison, and Powell waved back.
Wow.
Alton managed to stay hidden for 3 months before he was apprehended once more in his hometown of Culbertson.
Damn.
In 1908, 2 prisoners named George Rock and William Hayes attempted an escape that ended up pretty violent. Warden Frank Conley would regularly provide the inmates an opportunity to air their grievances each morning in what he would call Warden's Court. So just to get a visual of Frank Conley, like we've talked about him so much, but he was a guy who he said that he felt he was more of a match for the men he was maintaining in his prison than anyone else could be. He was 6'6" and weighed roughly 300 pounds. That is so fucking tall. 6'6". I know like one person who's 6'7", but that's huge. 300 pounds.
300 pounds, 6', and then I could just like, I mean, yeah, you're like, think about like somebody that size, if they were like, you're gonna build me a farm and a house and shit, like you wouldn't say no.
No,
of
course, no, imposing. This is an imposing man. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yikes.
He's huge.
He's enormous. And he always carried a .41 caliber pistol if his size, wasn't intimidating enough.
Yeah, that's Montana.
Oh, you're like, oh, we all do. That just comes with the territory.
So great.
On March 8th of 1908, a deputy was lining up the men to speak to the warden for their morning, warden's court. And 4 men rushed the deputy. Then William Hayes burst into Conley's office and started waving a knife in his face, threatening him. So Conley fired his pistol twice, hitting Hayes in the ear. So he was a terrible shot, apparently.
Yeah.
The remaining 3 inmates then rushed into the office, and Conley fired his pistol once more, only this time hitting George Rock, who is the other guy who had attempted this escape. Hayes got back to his feet, so Conley shot him again, then threw him into the hall after George.
Whoa.
So Conley, rattled, 6'6", goes out to help the deputy who is now on the ground under George. But as he went over to help the deputy, he saw that he had already had his throat slashed by George Rock. And George Rock wasn't done. After he slashed his throat, he's also like continuing to stab the guy. Overkill, literally. Conley threw a chair at George, who then turned on Conley. Frank Conley's pistol by this time was empty, so he fended George off with the butt of his gun. But George was just stabbing him. The escape attempt ended after a guard had broken through the locked door to the hallway and came in with his billy club. Their failed attempt to escape resulted in the tragic murder of Deputy Warden John Robinson. Warden Frank Conley had to get 103 stitches in his back and neck from stab wounds. In fact, one of the slashes from George Rock's blade in his neck came 1/8 of an inch from severing his jugular.
Whoa.
He was left with a scar to remember the incident for the rest of his life. What's crazy is, like, I don't feel as bad for Frank Conley because in my mind he's just, like, such a dick. But I feel terrible for the deputy. I don't know. I feel like he's just like, all right, guys, line up. And, like, he just gets his throat slashed. Like, shit. Anyway.
But we can't even, begin to, go into, I don't know. I think it's messed up that he had, a court, to, air their grievances.
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing is so weird.
I mean, it's like, why wouldn't you... Okay, I think it's good that you want to hear the grievances of your prisoners to be like, okay, how can we, improve our prison? But it's like...
But, I'm also going to put you to work building houses for my friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all seems so weird.
I mean, that would be a grievance. Yeah. But it's like, why don't they just have, a suggestion box? Why do they have to physically line up and, square up with the warden and be like, oh, we eat a lot of starch. I don't know.
It feels like a king thing. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
okay, now
it does.
Come tell me what it's like I'm the king and I'll let them talk to me and tell me what yeah,
it does. It feels a little, almost degrading to line up and then complain.
Yep, it's fucked up.
Both Rock and Hayes received the death sentence for the assault. George Rock was hanged inside the prison yard that year, and William Hayes was hung the following year. They were hung using a method known as the upright jerker method. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's like being hung but you like go up versus down. It would use a 300-pound weight to jerk the sentenced man up to his feet. The method was meant to snap their necks, but failed in both instances.
Oh, God.
They were the only inmates to be executed in the prison.
Wow.
Perhaps the most notable event at the prison was the prison riot of April 1959. Convicts Jerry Miles and Lee Smart took 18 prison employees and 5, this is from my source, stool pigeon inmates, which I don't understand what that means at all. Do you?
No idea. No.
Okay,
no.
Great. I like put it in there to be like, maybe that's an obvious thing that Kate's going to know that I don't, but.
I wish.
Okay, great. I'm thinking stool pigeon inmates. Like they're inmates, but they're also taking them as hostages. So it's like.
It's a term I've never heard in my whole life.
Me neither. So are they like kiss asses? Like it's like, oh, they're kind of. They were going to like tell on them. Who knows? Anyway, so they took 18 prison employees and then 5 stool pigeon inmates, whatever the hell those are, as hostages. And then they soaked rags with flammable liquid and threatened to burn all of them alive, including Warden Powell. This is when the new warden came in. This poor fucking guy, the new warden, was just like, he waves at people like trying to leave and he's like, I'm an idiot. Yeah. Meanwhile, actually, I didn't even like put this in my notes, but after Conley left, the prison started falling into disrepair. Because like,
which is wild.
Well, it's because like the prisoners weren't doing all the prison labor anymore.
Sure,
so then it's like.
Yeah, they ran the place. He ran the place and they did all the work. So that makes perfect sense.
Exactly. So it's kind of like one of those things where you're like, God, like he seems like kind of a dick, but at the same time, like the prison was like maintained because of him. And like I could kind of see what he meant about the having a sense of accomplishment. Like who knows? It's probably somewhere in the middle.
It was still the worst place ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the hostages, oh my God, too, like, picture that too, like just that smell. Oh, at this point, no. At this point, Conley had been there. There's like probably lights in the prison. It's not just all oil lights and whatever. But just,
right, because it's like 59 is when the riot happened. You said
April 1959.
59, yeah.
So, but just being threatened to be burnt alive, like fuck. The hostages. So many people too. Oh my God.
It's like a big group of people. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. It is. It's horrible. The hostages were held for 3 days while the riot raged on. 36 hours after the riot began, the National Guard was brought in and fired a bazooka at the tower where the ringleaders were headquartered.
Yes, and I think you can still see where that happened.
Yes.
Go visit. That's awesome.
At the same time as this blast, a team of men burst through the doors and across the yard, entered the cell house, and freed the hostages. Miles and Smart, the 2 men who led the riot, were found dead of apparent murder-suicide at the top floor of the tower, which is now referred to as the Death Tower. Miles had shot Smart, his partner, before turning the gun on himself. There are several parts of the prison that are considered to be haunted. The most haunted areas are described as the Death Tower, which you've been to, right?
They don't let you up in the tower. So I haven't been to the tower, but it's supposed to be like crazy haunted.
Oh, that sucks. They don't let you up in there. That's where I would want to go.
Honestly, a lot of it's like pretty shut off. Like you can go places, but like not up. There's like nothing about it.
A safety thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense too. If it's like high up and like it's the thing is like half in disrepair.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the most haunted areas are described as the Death Tower, the Administration House, the Clark Theater that we talked about earlier, maximum security, where visitors are actually warned not to explore alone, the chapel, and the hole, where prisoners were once subjected, of course, to solitary confinement. There are claims that something sinister lurks in the hole and tries to attack people, whispering things too softly to be heard. Perhaps it makes sense that this would be among the most haunted places on the premises, given that almost as many prisoners died in the hole as those that were actually sent to the gallows, which is nuts.
Yeah. It's so messed up. It's so many people died in that prison. It's wild.
Did you actually go to the hole?
Yes.
In maximum security?
Yes. And I have a whole, I can tell you all about it whenever you're ready, because I can
okay.
I went to most of those places.
Oh my God. I can't wait to hear. I so wish I could physically be there. So I'll finish up. I've got a little bit, not that much longer to go. And then I'm really interested to hear about what it was actually like to be there.
Sure.
So when visiting the old Montana State Prison, people claim to have experienced a wide range of paranormal experiences, including full-bodied apparitions, disembodied voices, items being thrown, sudden inexplicable coldness, mists, shadows, darting figures, eerie sounds, sudden feelings of dread or anxiety, and unpleasant smells, which is the worst. So
it's like ghost shit. It's literally the ghosts of all of that.
It's like anything you can imagine a ghost could do. That's what people experience here. Some have reported the feeling of being choked by unseen hands and pushed down corridors. Some visitors claim to have emerged with scratches all over their bodies that they couldn't explain. A group of paranormal investigators claims to have communicated with a female voice who identified herself as Nancy. I don't know anything about it, but that's interesting. Turkey Pete is believed to haunt the premises, which would be my favorite ghost to encounter, especially, of course, in cell number 1. He spent 49 years incarcerated at the prison before dying in 1967 of natural causes. Paranormal events at the prison have been recorded on film, digital cameras, voice recorders, temperature gauges, thermal imaging cameras, K2 meters, and other equipment. Though it's not always easy to catch, given that some batteries seem to drain immediately upon entering, especially in the maximum security building. So I always actually, when I'm physically at the location too, that's the stuff that scares me the most, because I see that in a lot of research. It's the battery's just drained in all of our equipment. And I'm always like, oh shit, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, right?
It would ruin my whole show.
You need those batteries.
You kind of need these. The old Montana State Prison has been featured on Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures in Season 10, Episode 8, in which their camera batteries inexplicably exploded and fizzled acid, which is nuts. I always talk shit about them, but that sounds like it was actually really cool.
They're literally my favorite TV show of all time.
Oh my God, really? Sorry.
And I know all I do is talk shit about them. I've been obsessed with them for over 10 years.
It's so corny.
My friend, I literally yesterday got a present in the mail from a friend that's a Zach Bagans face mask. That's how much people know that I'm obsessed with that.
Oh my God.
I talk shit about them too all the time.
Just because it's so corny. Yeah, it is. But that sounds really cool. I haven't seen the episode, but the camera battery is exploding and fizzling acid. That's crazy.
That was one of those situations where it kind of confirmed for me that some of the stuff they do
is real,
is legitimate, because I knew where they were. I knew
you've seen this episode.
Oh yeah, it's because it was oh my God, I was so excited when I heard about it.
Of course,
yeah. And there's an episode where they go to Bannack, Montana, which is another place that I've been to that I love. That's super haunted. But there's just some situations in that where I'm they couldn't fake that, and that looks like.
So what did it?
You know what I mean?
What was it like when you watched it in the episode? How did you know it wasn't fake? I guess is what I'm saying.
Just where that stuff happened, and then I can't. It sounds really dumb, but we caught stuff when I was there, and it just
doesn't sound.
I was just I believe it. It sounds, the sound quality is the same. You know what I mean? There's a very specific sound to me for an electric voice phenomenon. There were definitely things I definitely believe the battery exploded. I didn't have anything like that happen to me, but sometimes I swear they're they're performing very much so. They're like, I feel
Totally.
this, I'm scared. And when they were in there, they were kind of just like, oh my God, something is in here. Like, you know
Oh
what I mean? They
shit.
had
That's
they had
cool.
like a different reaction to it that I totally believed. And I was
That's
so worried
dope.
they were gonna like play it up and do their thing there, but they didn't need to because it was like so active and it
Oh
was
my
so
God,
great.
that's so awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of like I said, like I talk shit about them like all the time. But just because
I
like
do
I've
too.
been watching paranormal shows since I was like born and
Yeah.
all of them are like that. They're all performative. It's all like
It's TV.
it's
Yeah.
TV. Yeah, so but it's like it's insulting cuz I'm like I do believe in this stuff and I hate that it's,
Yeah.
but this
Some
is
of their
like,
early
oh,
stuff.
I mean a battery exploding and fizzling acid. That's like how would you make that? How would you? I guess you could stage that, but why?
Well, there was something about they did like an equal parts like their thing where they were like, what if we did this to like get the energy up? And then like the things that they caught, I knew that it must it like they just it felt really authentic. That's all. But for
Yeah.
the most part, they're the worst, and I'm obsessed with them for it. I
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no. No, I hear you. No, that's
yeah.
that's cool. Like I'm kind of oh god, I'm so bummed we can't go to this place. Um it has also been featured on Travel Channel's Destination Fear and Discovery Channel's Ghost Lab. Several films were partially filmed in the prison, including Ranch Deluxe, Runaway Train, Diggstown, and Love Comes to the Executioner. The prison was also mentioned in the 1983 Hank Williams Jr. song, Two Dot Montana. If you live close by or are visiting the area, check out brownpapertickets.com for your chance to visit and do some ghost hunting of your own. They offer overnight exclusive access, access to the most haunted areas of the prison, a psychic medium vigil, group or long vigils, an overnight ghost hunt, use of their ghost hunting equipment, free time to do your own private vigils, and even unlimited refreshments, including coffee, bottled water, and soda, and a selection of snacks. Which you
Amazing.
can attest to, I guess, right?
Well, I'm really interested in that because I think that all came later, if
Oh,
that makes
okay.
sense.
Oh, really?
Like I
Because,
think it became popular on TV, like these places kept coming through
oh, maybe, yeah.
and they're like, oh, because like when we went, they weren't like
You're like,
offering
we
anything
didn't get
like that.
snacks.
Yeah, no, yeah,
So
not at
tell me
all.
about going, save the scariest part for last. How about?
I
I'm
mean, a lot of it's
excited.
not going to be super scary,
I'm
but it's
scared
like,
already.
well, okay. First of all, I don't know. I became like obsessed with ghosts and especially like ghost hunting really young. And my father was like really into, he was like a regular every night listener to Coast AM. So he would like,
Mm-hmm.
um, I really got into it when the Ghost Investigators Society, I'm not sure if they're still around. This is literally so long ago. um, but they used to always be on that, and I would listen to their recordings and all these things. And they one day they were like, "Yeah, we're at the Deer Lodge prison," and I was like, "Oh my god, I know exactly where that is." Um, and
You're
uh,
like, Dad, put your boots on. We're going.
basically, but I had just been so into all this stuff, and it sounds ridiculous, but I went to an alternative high school, and
Oh
they
my
had
God. No, I went to an alternative high school too. That does
really?
not
That's
sound
great.
ridiculous. Or maybe it does. I don't know.
I don't know what your alternative high school was like. I won't talk too much shit about mine, but
Great.
they let us smoke, and we were like 15. It's fine. They gave
Like
us like
we had, yeah, I
smoking
went to a
classes.
public high school and then I took classes at the alternative, like
Yeah.
art high school, basically, where it
Yeah.
was like total, yeah. It does not
Mm.
sound stupid. It's
Okay.
amazing. I loved mine. And yeah, we would totally smoke cigarettes in the parking lot.
Yeah.
None of us
It's like
cared.
go tell the vice principal. I'm like, I'm gonna go outside and smoke. I'm so underage, you know? And
And
they're
everyone's
like,
just like, great.
yeah,
Come
they're
on
like, we're
in
just
for your
happy if
art
you come back.
project. Your final is a
Exactly.
painting. Like, it's just, we're here to explore art. It was fucking awesome.
Exactly.
I'm a huge
So
fan of alternative high schools.
me too. And
Montessori. Love it.
Montessori, I did, my school was like a little, for like, kind of like like kids on drugs and kids with kids, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Which was really great. I'm sure that there are some like really nice alternative high schools out there.
Yes.
This one was not as nice.
Oh yeah, mine was more of like trying to explore. Okay, never mind. Yeah, different kind of alternative high school. Terrific.
I was like, but it was the same where it's just like your final is an art project because we're just glad you came to the building.
Yeah,
today.
they're like,
really
good job for being here.
Where you are.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's kind of how it was with us too.
Yeah, like they gave us like a bowling. They took us bowling for our PE grade. Like every 2 weeks we'd go bowling.
This sounds like model. Like, and it was amazing. I loved it. I feel like I worked harder in my classes at the alternative high school than in like my traditional classes at the public school. Like it was crazy. But anyway,
called all the teachers by their first names. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's what we did too. It was exactly the same model. It's insane.
Yeah, I
crazy,
love it.
Amazing.
Well, I did my senior project on electric voice phonomics. I was like obsessed with it, and like my plan was, I was 17 at the time, and I was just like so obsessed. So I don't want to date it because I don't want to say how old I am, but I also don't want to say how young I am, which is weird.
Okay. All right.
But I'm not even sure I can tell you the year, but the idea is like they weren't doing stuff like paranormal tours there or anything like that. Okay. And I was like going to the thrift store, the Salvation Army, and buying giant bulky tape recorders, and then going to Walmart and buying like packs of like legitimate cassette tapes. We had more than a few big giant recorders, and then we had one camera, and it was me and my father and my boyfriend at the time, and then our best friend. So it was like me and 3 guys, and we showed up. We basically called them and said like, hey, we need to come through and do an investigation. And they were like, I don't know, why don't you show up early before we open and we'll let you come in and be alone for a few hours.
Cool.
So it was like, oh, awesome. Yeah, it's like first thing in the morning. It's not late at night and scary. But it was really fun because my dad basically hung out and interviewed the lady at the front desk pretty much the whole time. What? He's like asked her a bunch of stuff. Well, she had like it was really fun because it's all on the recording. Like he's like really being like, so like, what do you see? Like, what kind of ghosts around here? And she's like, I don't talk about it, like I don't talk about it ever. And he's like, you have to see something. And then like it's him just like pushing and pushing, and finally she just like lets loose and starts telling these stories. And it's like it's a lady who would like never make it up.
Yeah,
you know
yeah, yeah.
I don't even know, like she could never. And she had these like amazing stories about same stuff. Like you hear stuff, you see stuff. There's a lot of footsteps, voices, things like that. But she had this story where she like was like closing up the whole place for the day, and she came into the front lobby, and there's somebody sitting at a table. There's like tables in the front lobby there, and she basically was like, hey, we're closed, And this person's just like sitting there, and she's like, I'm so sorry, like you have to leave. And she said that then she like looked down and she realized that it like whoever was sitting in the chair had no feet.
So, like, that's unique.
Yeah, it was such a crazy, like the way she told it was so amazing. So she's like, this person's just sitting there, and then that's when she realized, she's like, oh my God, I'm looking at somebody there in like weird gray garb. And I assumed it was like a female prisoner, which is weird, but they like which they had
they added a women's area to the women's facility there, so that would make sense.
And it was just such a great way. She was so funny the way she told it, and so she had these amazing stories. There's also attached to the prison is like a car museum.
Yeah. I saw that doing my research too. What a weird like combo.
It's such a weird combo.
Yeah.
You have to like go into this prison, and then there's just like in the lobby, it's like to the right, prison, to the left, like amazing car collection.
So random. Yeah, even like when I was doing my research, I was looking at one site and I was like, wait, is this the right source? Like, is this the right place? I was like, yeah, okay, I guess,
It's so funny too, because when you drive through Montana, the billboards say like old Montana State Prison. It has like a car, like a picture of a car.
Like, what?
It's great.
So random. Okay. I mean, I bet it's cool, but It's just like now for something completely different. Like here's
Yeah.
okay.
It's so weird. And she said she had like stories of that like activity in there all the time,
In the
which
car
is so
car
strange.
part too.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think the whole place is just like so haunted.
Yeah.
But she says she let us in, and so he did this like great interview there. And keep in mind, like we're kids, right? Like we're 17, 18-year olds, and it's like me and my boyfriend and my friend, and we definitely split up and we went to different areas, and they took it very seriously, which is really great. And we didn't have anything fancy. We just had like the one camera, and all the recorders, and we left some things alone and came back and got them. We went to different places. Like the hole is really scary.
So
We
what does that look like? Like when you walk into what they call the hole?
well, I always feel I'm so glad you're stoked about talking about it, because whenever I tell these kinds of stories, people are like so like that would never happen. But we
What?
caught well, we caught like 3 or 4 like amazing EVPs, and I like spent
Cool.
all of this time transferring them to a computer. I ended up emailing them to like
Wait, do you have them? Can you
ghost
send me
hunters.
them?
Dude, I have been looking for them.
Oh my God. This
They're
happens
on an
all the
iPod.
time.
I,
Oh, they were on an iPod.
they're that old. Like
Yeah.
I had to put them on an iPod to like the computer that I had at that time doesn't exist anymore. I know that they're on an iPod,
Right.
and I know that I have that iPod,
Oh
and if I
God.
find it, I will tell you, because I've been meaning to find them for so long. Oh, now I'm like even more. I
This
don't want to
happens.
promise anything, but I
It's
will find it.
crazy though, because it's like I've had so many people be like, "Yeah, I caught this on recording." You're like, "Can I hear it?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened to that." You're like, "What?
Yeah,
What?
I
I would
know.
guard that with my life forever."
I know. And it's wild because it's like it's at the time it's like I didn't know how much I would want it. If that,
Right.
you know what I
You're
mean?
like,
Like,
"Whatever."
cool, I did this thing like nothing dies, everything's invincible. Like,
Thanks,
why would I
Dad.
ever
Um,
make the thought to keep it, you know?
so
So,
what was it saying? Like, what did you hear it
well,
saying?
so when you're in the prison, there's at least what they told us, this woman who didn't really, there wasn't any ghost tours so much then. And they definitely didn't give us one, but she was like, yeah, like a lot of stuff happens in the showers, and the hole is like right by the showers. So like there's this giant
Hmm.
shower room, and then you go down into the hole, which is just like what you think it is. It's like literally tiny, scary little rooms underground, and they're so pitch dark, like the farthest from the source of light. And we caught one of our best ones. We caught like just a solid like man saying "get out" in the shower, and
Amazing.
it's so good. It was totally freaky, and it's of course it's super fun because you don't hear it until you get home.
Oh
You listen
yeah.
to like
So you just
hours and
sit there
hours
and
of it.
listen to it. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So we caught one in there, but we're also kids, so we're like bopping around saying dumb stuff on these tape recorders,
Right.
trying to like allow space for spirits to talk, but for the most part we're just like, this is creepy, and then like you
Yeah.
just hear like a get out like in the background of it, and
And it
it's
was really
so
clear.
crystal clear.
Oh,
Oh, it's so good.
crazy.
And then there was this other one that was really cool, which was in the hole. And we were doing a thing where we had like set up a I think it was a $20 bill, and we had folded it in half. We were trying to do like a, hey, like, can you knock this down? Do you want this? Like
Do you want my
really.
money?
Yeah, I mean, it's like really, I can't, like the definition of like amateur children trying
Yeah,
to talk to
whatever.
ghosts.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and when we listened to that part back, we caught a voice that was like, I'll do it. And it was like crazy. It's super faint. You had to like, but it's like very clear. And that one was a little bit more amazing for us because it was like a few words. It was like, I'll do that.
Did they actually do it? Did they knock down the dollar or
No,
anything?
no. And I can't tell you that like any of us were like ever really freaked out except for one place, which I'll tell you about.
Oh my
There weren't,
gosh.
there's no like bursts of energies. We weren't having any sort of like freaky moments or anything like that. Really, we're just kind of goofing around in this prison, and there's this voice on that one that's amazing. And then, I mean, we recorded a few hours, so we had to listen to each device and do everything for hours. But The one that was like so weird was in the solitary confinement. So it's this building that's actually on the outside of the wall of the prison. So like there's the courtyard, which of course has like the death tower, and there's a big high wall around the whole thing.
Right.
And there's a tiny little door in the wall in a certain area, and that's where you walk in. And at one point that was like the solitary confinement. There's the whole, but then there's like worst of the worst are in here, which they did eventually make the women's prison.
Right, that's right.
I believe.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where they say like don't go in there alone and stuff like that. And that place is probably like the closest thing I've had to any sort of like experience of like I walked in somewhere and I was like, no thank you. Like you know, you like
Wow.
go into a space and you're like, this doesn't feel the same as the rest of the place.
Yeah.
And the three of us went in there and we caught a female moan that only showed up on like 2 of the 3 devices, which was
Interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and but we're all in the same exact space next to each other.
Mhm.
So it was like really fascinating that it was caught on the camera, which is filming us. We're not making noises, right? And then it's caught on one of the recorders and then not so much the other one.
Yeah,
So we were,
that's
there was
weird.
like a big argument in my like, I'm sure now if I revisit it, insane sounding senior project was I was just like, look how paranormal this is. We caught it. No one made this noise. Isn't that crazy? But like, look, it's not on this one, but it's on this one and this one. Like, how can you explain that? You can't, you know, like that kind of thing.
And everyone's like, okay.
Yeah, they're
Like
we
people
can't
aren't
even,
listening.
they don't. They were like, no, I thought I was gonna blow everybody's mind, and I remember they just could not care.
Oh my God, that sucks.
I mean, those were like the big ones. I remember they were like crystal clear, amazing
Yeah.
EVPs, and I emailed them to the Ghost Investigators Society just to have them email me back and be like, yeah, those sound like EVPs. We can't like I don't know what
They're
to
like,
tell you.
okay. Ew. There's just so much attitude from this whole thing. Like I would be so excited. Even if I didn't have this show, like I'd be like, yeah, I want to hear that. Send that to me. Like I would love to hear that.
Well, it was great too because like my boyfriend and my friend who were doing it with me, they took it seriously enough. But then when we went home and listened to the tapes, like the level at which they freaked out because they were there and they were like, what? We never heard this, you know, like that like full like I've had my first experience like paranormal wise.
Right.
And I think if I remember, we all slept in my living room that night. We had like a sleepover and like nobody wanted to go home. We were like such kids. It was really great.
That's awesome.
And then I went back. I'd visited a few times. Only had I gone back later in my late teens. What would that be? Probably 20 years old. So it was like 3 years later. I was like, I haven't been home in a really long time.
Yeah.
That time I went with like a friend, a roommate, and we were alone there. They let us in alone. It wasn't any sort of like paranormal tour. But we didn't like catch anything at all, but we heard something, and that was really weird for me. So we like heard somebody talking and we couldn't find them. And we were just like, we're the only people in here. Who did they let in? That's going to mess up our thing. And we couldn't find them. We're like, oh my God, that was paranormal. Other than that, we didn't have any sort of luck like we did the first time. The whole place is just the coolest. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it at this point.
Yeah,
it's so high up, like the 3 levels of cells, like most of those those old prisons are, but it's like just like cold and scary and just like a maze, and it's the best.
That's
Sorry,
awesome.
I just like rant about it. I love
No,
that
not at all.
so
I'm
much.
like blown away that because for listeners, I just told Kate, when was it, last night? What we're doing, or this morning?
It was last night, yeah.
It was like, because a lot of times I don't tell the comic where we're going, just because like sometimes like a comic will like research something right before I like
nervous.
Yeah. They'll get nervous or they'll feel like they're supposed to like learn something about it and like have homework or something. And I'm like, no, dude. Like I'm just gonna tell you a story. Like it's not, there's nothing. Like you're just gonna hang out. But when I told Kate, oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the old Montana State Prison, she's like, oh yeah, I've been there several times. Like I've ghost hunted there. I'm like, this is amazing. And also for listeners too, like again, you can look at the Instagram for pictures, but to just picture what this looks like, it almost looks like a castle. Like the way it looks fucking rad, actually.
Well, and it's wild because Deer Lodge is so tiny and it's like right in the middle of town. That's the other thing. And by town, I mean the town's not, when you're driving through, you're going to drive next to it, if that makes sense. It's
right.
Like,
okay. You won't miss it.
Sidewalk. It's like, and the new prison, like the one that's like actually like where people go to prison now in Montana, like that's farther away. It's like away from the road, but this castle just kind of like sits in the middle of Deer Lodge. And
it does. And it literally, looks like a castle, like from
it's so cool.
Europe. Yeah. It's awesome.
And I haven't been there in a good while now, but I went so many times because it was such a short drive, and it's like it's never busy. I'm sure it's like much more popular now. Like you said, they never offered anything like that back then, but it's so huge and it's so amazing. Recommend it to anyone driving through there.
I hope you had fun exploring the old Montana State Prison with Kate and I. Check out Kate's website at katemurphy.com. That's kate-murphy.com. Or watch her on the iAnonymous show. You can find the show through the Portland Mercury's website at merctickets.com. That's MERC tickets.com. While you're at it, check us out on Instagram too. You can find us with the handle at LitDark That's at LITDARK Podcast. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and make sure to leave a comment when you visit. We love hearing from you guys. Special thanks for this episode goes to my producer, Randall Lawrence in Cranival Studios, my graphic designer, Jonathan Cooper in Heck Yeah Studios, Kate for being an amazing guest, and of course, all of you for listening. I'll see you next time right here on Laughing in the Dark. Laughing in the Dark is brought to you in part by Heck Yeah Studio. Heck Yeah Studio is a creative effort working with people to create meaningful things. At Heck Yeah Studio, they work with clients to turn their ideas or existing brands into real or better versions. Heck Yeah Studio is the place to go for custom illustration for a full range of branding services, like killer logos, great colors and typography, and fun illustrations for pins, signs, prints, shirts, vehicles, posters, or anything you can imagine. At Heck Yeah Studio, they work with love. Their dream client is someone who is passionate about what they do. At Laughing in the Dark, Heck Yeah Studio has designed our logo, all of our merch, and any posters or stickers that we have. I am so proud and lucky to work with such an awesome company, and I could not recommend them higher.